Okay, so, I don't have the most crazy anti-police views. Like, believe it or not, without everything that's been said and done. But by far, like, the worst people I've ever had to deal with is Saginaw County Jail. And I don't care about putting them out by name. I have no love for them. Like, it's crazy because everything else, man, you wouldn't think I was one of those guys. But I see like example after example of, you know, basically the police just abusing public trust. And I get angry for a minute, but then I kind of like, I don't know, I kind of trust them again. I'm just, I don't know, I see the best in people, I guess. But Saginaw County Jail, man, the difference there is that I just saw none of them were like normal people. Even other places that were kind of rough, there's still a good amount of guards that are like fairly normal. Man, Saginaw County, they just all, I don't know if they were so jaded, but they could tell they just did not view you as like human anymore. And, let me think. So I wrote down a couple Saginaw County jail stories because they're definitely my best jail stories. And I've done very, very little time in Saginaw County Jail compared to other jails, but that's where all my stories come from. So the first one was I go in, and this was back when it was the old jail, and Saginaw County Jail only had like for high security level, which for whatever reason they always put me in high security. I think it's because one time I got arrested and I was so intoxicated they took me to the hospital, and I tried to escape from the hospital. So like it was written in a report like escape attempt, or I don't know. I guess that's why. That's what they told me one time, but the other times they just wouldn't tell me why. But anyways, I go to high security and there's only like one or two white cells. So you typically know the same people. So I go in there and I see guys I knew from the last time when I was in there. And I'm like, how are you guys still in here? It's been like a year and a half, I know you weren't fighting like crazy cases. It was weird. But anyways, I'm looking and I see at the table, there's this dude who's been on the news. And I have his name written down, Michael Lask. If you Google Michael Lask M Live, you'll see what I'm talking about. So what happened basically is I think he was at a motel with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's kid, and his girlfriend went out and whatever. He says like the baby was crying, but basically he, Bart Simpsoned the baby, and the baby passed. And it was a really, really high profile case in Saginaw at the time. I instantly recognized the dude. And then I was really surprised because this is like, this isn't like hardcore prison politics, but these are pretty rough and tumble dudes. Like, they usually wouldn't program, as they say, with like an S offender or somebody who hurt a child. So I pull a few guys to the side and I'm like, hey, what's dude over there in here for? And they're like, oh, strangulation. Yeah, he strangled his homeboy at a motel. And I was like, yeah, that's like 90% of it, but the last 10%. So instantly they call him over to check his paperwork. And right away, like, it was they could tell from his reaction. I can't believe dude got away with it for so long. And, the funny thing is in Saginaw County Jail, you have to pay for the cable TV. And I guess nobody had paid for it in like months. I couldn't believe the guy went under the radar that long. But anyways, this young kid that was in the cell, Danny Crawford, just takes off on the dude. I mean, stomped the life out of the guy. And he didn't get any charges for it. He did 30 days in the hole and they kicked him back out. And so that dude, the Michael Last guy, they call him Twitch because he always like twitches. And I think like after that, he like twitched even more. But, I don't feel bad for him at all, man. And there's also, there's no way that him being put in that cell was an accident. The cops definitely knew. Like somebody like that cannot be in GP. Basically, anybody who commits a murder at all, even like an adult murder victim, usually isn't in GP like that. At least in the old jail. So they put him in specifically to have him retaliated against. And I've seen that a few times in Saginaw County where they'll have somebody who clearly will be victimized because they have a sex crime. And they'll just feed them to the wolves, you know what I mean? And eventually they'll end up going into like single cell PC, but they'll let them be tortured. Man, I remember I was in this one cell and they had put a dude with one of those cases. And I guess we heard about his I guess it was a bad case. I had came into the cell and he was already there. and they had this dude sleeping on the floor in the corner on the cement. Like they took his mat and everything. And the COs make rounds. The COs make rounds and see that this guy that we're making this dude sleep on the corner. And the COs see that we snatch his food. We're taking his food. Like they're giving him 2 pieces of bread a day to survive. And, he could always get on the bars and go PC. I don't know. I think he just knows that it could be worse somewhere else. This is a good part, right? So like I said, there's only so many white cells, so he can only bounce around to so many places. So what does he want to go to the black cell? It really ain't going to go good for him. So I guess the cell, there's only 2 white cells. He was in the other white cell before, and he got on the bars and got out, which is to say he, told the officers like, I'm scared. I can't be here anymore. And they move you. So, we were talking to him a little bit, and my buddy was talking to him, and he goes, hey, so, who made you get on the bars over there? Basically saying like, who bullied you so bad that you had to get out of that cell? And he goes, so-and-so Surgison. and he goes, oh yeah? Well, guess what? I'm Ryan Surgison. Because that was my brother. And you just see the look on the bad guy's face. Just, oh man, he was like, we didn't take off on him or anything after that. I ended up bonding out shortly after, but yeah, that was kind of rough, man. Like, dude, when I was younger, I was all for tormenting those guys to the fullest, but when they were like starving that guy, that was just about where I would tap out unless I was hungry, and I pretty much always was. Because when I would feel bad, but then when that tray would come around and it'd be like, I ain't gonna let this dude eat a piece of cake. I want that piece of cake. You can have a piece of bread. That's what you get, So screw him, man. Yeah, so this is what actually made me really dislike Saginaw County Jail. So I mean, just in general, they were always really rude to my family. That's one thing I didn't like. But this is a messed up story, man. So I got arrested for, I think I was like intoxicated in front of the mall. I think that was the time I went in. Yeah, so I go into jail and I'm kicking dope real bad. So, I'm a pretty stout guy, I'm not saying I'm the toughest guy, but I'm not afraid of conflict. Especially like with these dudes I was in the cell with. I was way bigger than them. But like I said, man, I was, down for the count. I was sick bad. So I go in there and there's this one dude with all these shitty prison tattoos, and he's just a straight, like, skinny crackhead, toothless moron. And he's telling me all this stuff about how he's a gangbanger and he has like 70,000 hidden in a car out there. And he's just like a classic, in jail, like people often fit into like archetypes, and the liar is a very common archetype. Like the, how would you say, compulsive liar. Because you can be whoever you want in there. Very, very rarely do you know somebody from the streets in there. I mean, so it happens, but you can lie really well. And he's just telling me all these stories, but I can tell he's like off as hell, and he's like really aggressive. Like everybody else in the cell, but me and him are sleeping, and he's just talking shit about every person that's sleeping. And I'm like, okay, like surely you're gonna talk shit about me. So I already knew that. Here's where I made the mistake. There's the guys like that that are hella institutionalized are really weird about their shit, like really weird. And I wanted to write a letter to my mom, and I had like the envelope, the paper, I had everything but the pencil. And I see this dude had a cup with like 30 of these freaking rubber pencils that they sell in the jail. So I ask, hey man, can I borrow a pencil? And already off the bat, he's like, I don't know, man, you're going to give it. And I was like, God damn, I should have known then, like, this isn't even worth it. And I already was like, oh, this is, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm just going to use it really quick and give it right back to him. So he makes a big deal about it. I get the pencil. I write my mom a letter, and the dude's in the shower. And I'm like, I don't even want to, like I said, I don't even want to be holding on to this. So I like put it back in his little pencil holder, and he comes back out and he starts tripping about the pencil. And I'm like, I put it back in the pencil holder. Don't worry. And he goes and he dumps them out and proceeds to count them and insists that it came up 32, 33. I don't know what the number was, but he insists it's one short. And already my heart sinks, because I know it ain't like, it fell in the corner. Like, I put it in that cup. Like, it's not anywhere else. and there's nowhere it could be. This is a pretty empty place. It's a freaking jail cell. And I keep, looking for it, and he's making a bigger and bigger deal about it, and he's huffing, and the dude's nuts, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, everybody in the cell starts like turning on me about it. Some people just want to see violence, And next thing I know, like, it's funny, all these little dudes that he was talking shit about, they like took off on me like his minions. What's crazy is I think he was like one of the only ones that didn't fight me. But all these other little ones come at me, and I'm keeping up with them. But man, I'm not gonna lie, they were getting over on me, and they just kept coming. And eventually, this is the problem with fighting in jail, man. I'm not scared of like a fist fight unless it's a real big dude or he really knows how to fight. Because there's only, I mean, I guess you could get hit and lose teeth, but for the most part, it's not. There's worse things in life than getting a black eye. But fighting in jail, man, everything is concrete and metal. And I remember, I don't know what exactly happened, if it was their punch that knocked me out, or I think it might have been they hit me and my head went back and hit the bars, because they did get me backed up against the bars. But I know I got like knocked out like 2 or 3. It felt like I, got knocked out, then fell and hit the metal picnic table and got knocked, awoke, and then fell and hit the concrete and got knocked out again. And then they stopped me, and I woke. It was like traumatic, man. I don't, this is kind of a funny story, but let me tell you some real shit. I have reoccurring nightmares, of not that instance specifically. I mean, sometimes, but typically, variations of that, like, people like holding me down and stabbing something in my eye, and it's always in a jail setting. Like, I know I'm in jail when it happens. It was, it was like fucked up, man. I got like the next day, I remember, my equilibrium was messed up. I was walking a little zigzags, and I swore that like I had like minor vocabulary issues. Like, it was some real shit. But anyways, I got knocked out, and eventually they, I don't know what happened, but I was on the ground for a while, and this is in Saginaw County Jail. I'm not going to get into describing the setup, but basically the police make rounds, every like 20 or 30 minutes, I think, at maximum. And I must have been on the ground for an hour and a half. So I remember they walked by me like while I was laying on the ground all fucked up once. And they definitely walked by at least once, probably twice, when I was knocked out, and didn't do anything. And then finally, I tried getting on the bars. That's what they call, like, when you have to get out, you shake the bars to get the guards' attention. And they're straight up ignoring me. And I'm like in this cell of people that are like, just beat my ass. It's nowadays, like, dude, if I was like, I think back now, like, oh my God, I wish, like, now that I'm healthy, I wish, I see why, like, people who experience, like, sexual assault, they get, like, those fantasies about, like, attacking the person who caused them that trauma. Because now I'm like, God damn, I could take off on those fools nowadays. But it sucked, man. I was just trying to get out of there. And those police ignored me and left me in there. And finally, I get one of their attention. And, like, they literally, like, I would say, like, hey, like, you need to get, I'm, like, literally bloody and, like, messed up. And they're walking by, and I'm saying, like, hey, I need to get out of here. And they straight up ignore me. Like, do on some, how would you say, whatever, cut. And you see him walk by and just like totally ignore me on some like big time status stuff. I don't even know, like silent treatment stuff. It's crazy. And so finally one of them engages with me, and I'm like, hey, like I need to get out of here. And they're like, oh, why? And I'm like, what, dude, like, what do you want me to say, man? And it's like, I can't say like, oh, I just got beat up. Because you have to understand, with the jail design, the guard, just because he's right there, he can't let me out. Like, there's a whole process to open the gate. Like, those dudes could jump on me, and that CO couldn't do anything to stop them. So I don't want to say it. Plus, I don't want to talk to him about that anyways. Like, the word would travel. I'd be screwed in the jail. So I'm just like, hey, man, I just need to get out of here. And he pulls this move. He goes, oh, well, the only way you can get out of the cell is if you're suicidal. And if what that means is like they'll throw you butt naked in the holding tank with what's called the Bam Bam suit, the turtle suit. It's basically I don't know, it's this big piece of fabric with Velcro on it, so you don't totally freeze to death, but it's so you can't tie anything, I guess, obviously. But they'll hold you like that in the freezing cold drunk tank for 72 hours on observation. And then after that, you get, just thrown in another random cell. So he's saying like that's one option to get out. And I'm like, dude, you're going to punish me? You're going to punish me for getting jumped or leave me in here? And it's like, I don't know what to do. So finally I'm like, okay, dude. So he goes to let me out. I forgot about this till now. This is what's screwed up. Of all times, the freaking cell door breaks. And it's not even like a quick fix. It's like a 2-hour fix. So I'm sitting there on the ground in the cell surrounded by people that just jump me. At this point, they finally put a cop like sitting outside the door. So they have like they call the repairman. He comes in. Finally, man. Finally, I get out of there. And they do what they said, man. And they throw me in the drunk tank. Not naked, thankfully, but I'm freezing my ass off in there. And I couldn't believe it, man. And I'm like, what am I going to have to sit in here forever? Finally, there was one dude that came at me and like, he even did me a little bit dirty because he's like, okay, I know what happened. I'm going to get you put in another cell. And he like tried to talk to me about what happened. And I was like, listen, dude, like I can't, like word travels around here. I do not want to that'll be worse if I get labeled as somebody who talked. And he made it sound like he respected that and he'd get me thrown in another cell. And then I go back in the drunk tank and then he pulls me back out, or somebody else pulls me back out. And they sit me down to write a statement. And I'm like, no, I cannot write a statement. And finally they were nice enough. They put me in the other white cell. But get this, I'm sitting in there. Finally, I lay down to go to bed. And their horrible Saginaw County Jail has like a yoga mattress. So you're literally like sitting on metal with this little thin like plastic yoga mattress. It's horrible. Finally, I'm laying down to go to sleep. And I hear the cell door open. And who comes in as a new arrival? But the frickin' pencil dude. They put him, how do they make this mistake? The one guy I get into it with, they put him in the cell. So they move him in and we talk and he kind of like squashes it because he found out I didn't tell on him. And then they ended up pulling him back out though, thank God. And because he was just a weirdo to begin with. But yeah, anyways, the point of that story was I just could not believe, I was a little younger then still. So I wasn't like this kind of grizzled. I didn't have as many tattoos. Like, it's a pretty pitiful sight probably to see, like, beat up laying on the floor of that cell. And those dudes just ignored me. I couldn't believe it, man. Like cops get a bad rap, but I think everything bad you can say about them, the dudes working in your local county jail exemplify. Because you know what I would say, what I say about them? If they were smarter, they would be working in actual law enforcement. And if they were like braver or had balls, they would be working in the prison, making better money, kind of, it's more of like a career, So like you really do get like, how would you say like, well, you know how people always say like police, like, oh, they're just, dudes who have a power trip. That's much more true about people who work in county jail, at least in my experience. And I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm just saying the stereotype, it does apply in a lot of cases. I think it just applies more to people in county jail. So yeah, that video went longer than I thought. We're going to end it there. So at the end of this video, I'm going to put some news stories of people who have just inmates who have died in Saginaw County Jail. Keep in mind, Saginaw County Jail might hold like 400 or 500 people. It's not one of these mega jails where deaths should be any sort of common. It just, they're examples of gross negligence. And of course, they haven't been held accountable. And, like I said, even with my experience, there's an MDOC. I would give the Department of Corrections the benefit of the doubt in a lot of these cases. But in Saginaw County, hell no. They definitely were in the wrong. They neglect this for sure. Especially look at the details of these cases. One of them, a dude, it seemed like he probably like swallowed a baggie as he was getting arrested and started going into psychosis in the holding tank. And then had like a heart attack or something, and the police just ignored him. Which here's my last story. I saw somebody who probably did that. The last time I was ever in jail, I was sitting in the holding cell, and this dude came in just tripped out. Like, he might have potentially just been up for a couple days, but I think he probably got pulled over and like ate something because he was just completely. Like, he didn't understand he was in a jail cell. Like, he kept asking us for a lighter, and he had, like, He had picked up some like piece of paper off the ground and thought it was a cigarette, just totally gone. Tried ripping a phone off the wall, not like on some angry stuff, just like tugging, like a little tug action. You know, he was just totally out of it, and the police just completely ignored it, basically. Even though he was, it was like messed up. You know, I'm not just talking like, oh, he was a little intoxicated, like it was messed up. So that doesn't surprise me at all. So anyways, let me show you those, and thank you for watching. StraightFelon.com and on Twitter @StraightFelon. Thank you.